Have you ever wondered why the more good you are, the more invisible you feel? Why the more you give, the more people seem to take and forget? In a world that praises endless selflessness, many quietly carry the weight of being too kind, too available, too forgiving. But what if that version of goodness isn't strength at all, but a slow erosion of the self? Stoic wisdom teaches us that virtue without reason becomes self-destruction. In this video, we'll explore a deeper path, one where kindness and clarity walk side by side. Stay with me. What you hear next might change how you see yourself and the world. Number 1, the shadow and its power. Let's talk about what it really means to be a good person, not the kind the world applauds for being endlessly accommodating, endlessly forgiving, endlessly soft, but someone who is whole. You see, the more we try to be perfectly good in the way society demands, always agreeable, always available, always selfless, the more we silence the parts of ourselves that don't fit that image. But the Stoics knew that denying your nature never leads to virtue. It leads to inner division. And where there is division, there can be no peace. Imagine trying to hold a ball underwater. The harder you press, the harder it fights to break free. That's exactly what happens when you repress your limits, your anger, your needs, your truth. You don't destroy those parts, you just drive them underground, where they gain strength in the dark. The Stoics didn't pretend to be unfeeling saints. They believed in mastering the self, not mutilating it. Self-control, yes, but not self-erasure. A good person isn't someone who never feels anger or disappointment. A good person is someone who notices those feelings, faces them with reason, and chooses not to be ruled by them. But to do that, you must first stop pretending they don't exist. How many times have you felt something rise inside you? A sense of unfairness, of pain, of exhaustion, and immediately silenced it, thinking, a good person wouldn't feel this. That, my friend, is not strength. That is fracture. A man once told me how he'd spent years being the reliable one in every relationship. He never said no, never spoke up, never wanted to be a burden. But behind the smile was resentment, and behind the resentment was a kind of quiet despair. One day, someone asked him how he was doing, and for the first time in years, he answered honestly. The world didn't fall apart. In fact, something in him finally began to heal. That's the power of embracing what the Stoics would call the whole self. To be truly virtuous, you must bring all of yourself to the table, not just the parts that look good from the outside. Discipline without awareness becomes denial. Compassion without clarity becomes weakness. And love, if not grounded in self-respect, becomes self-sacrifice. We've been taught that to be good, we must be small. That to be kind, we must stay quiet. That to be loving, we must have no boundaries. But these are half-truths that have led many noble souls to burn out, break down, or become bitter in silence. True kindness is not the absence of edges. It's the presence of strength under restraint. You are not meant to be endlessly nice. You are meant to be wise, discerning, and deeply human. The Stoics remind us that nature has given each of us a capacity for reason. That reason is our guide, not the fear of disappointing others. If you feel anger rising, don't suppress it. Investigate it. If you sense yourself being taken advantage of, don't smile through it. Speak up with calm, firm clarity. Every time you choose to see your full range of emotions, not as flaws, but as signals, you grow stronger. Every time you face your own darkness without shame, you reclaim your power. This isn't a message about abandoning kindness. It's an invitation to purify it, to make it real. Real kindness includes truth. It includes courage. And most of all, it includes the refusal to betray yourself just to fit into someone else's version of virtue. At the end of the day, the strongest light you'll ever carry is the one that shines even after you've faced the dark within and decided not to fear it. Number 2, reclaiming strength through inner clarity. Let's talk about the part of you that no one else sees, the part you've been taught to hide, to tame, to silence in the name of being good. In Stoic thought, we are not meant to suppress our nature, but to govern it with wisdom. That means facing the whole of who we are, even the parts we've tried to deny. What we often call the shadow isn't something evil or shameful. It's simply the raw, untrained force within us, the instincts, emotions and truths we haven't yet brought under reason's command. For those who pride themselves on being kind, this hidden part can feel dangerous. If your identity is built around always being helpful, agreeable, and emotionally available, the idea of setting boundaries or even admitting you feel anger or exhaustion can feel like a betrayal of your core self. But the Stoics would argue the opposite. To pretend you are nothing but light is to deceive yourself, and self-deception is the root of all disorder. What happens when we push away what we feel instead of examining it? It doesn't vanish. It grows in the dark. Like trying to dam a river with bare hands, the pressure builds. And when it breaks, it doesn't ask for permission. That's why excessive kindness often leads to resentment, silent frustration, and a haunting sense of being unseen. We don't express what we need, and then we quietly blame others for not giving it. We nod along outwardly while something in us grows colder inside. I once met a woman named Eliza. Everyone admired her. She was thoughtful, reliable, always putting others first. But over time, she grew bitter, exhausted by one-sided relationships, crushed by the pressure to be endlessly available. It wasn't until she allowed herself to feel the anger she'd spent years avoiding that she finally found peace. Not by acting out, but by setting limits. Her kindness didn't fade, it matured. She stopped giving out of guilt and started giving from a place of strength. That's what Stoicism teaches us. Your limits are not flaws, they are forms of clarity. Your anger is not failure, it's a compass. It tells you where your principles have been crossed. Your desire to be acknowledged is not weakness. It's a reminder that even the strong deserve to be seen. When you integrate these parts, not indulge them blindly, but bring them into balance, you don't become less kind, you become wiser, more grounded. You can say no without guilt, love without losing yourself, and walk away from disrespect without regret. That is the kind of kindness the world desperately needs, one that is not afraid of its own depth. At the end of the day, the parts of you that you've been afraid to face may hold the very strength you've been searching for. When you meet them with courage, you don't lose your goodness, you reclaim it. Number 3. When kindness lacks wisdom. Let's talk about what happens when kindness loses its clarity. In Stoic philosophy, virtue is strength guided by reason. But when kindness is given blindly, without discernment, without limits, without balance, it becomes something else entirely. It turns into self-neglect dressed in noble language, into servitude mistaken for love, into depletion misread as generosity. And over time, it quietly erodes both the giver and those they try to serve. Picture someone like Daniel. He's the one everyone counts on. He never says no, never complains, never asks for anything in return. At work, he picks up the extra shifts. At home, he absorbs everyone's burdens. He's always there, always available. From the outside, he looks like the rock everyone leans on. But if you look closer, you'll see the cracks, exhaustion in his eyes, unspoken frustration beneath the surface, a life filled with noise but missing his own voice. Stoicism teaches us that virtue must be governed by wisdom. Daniel's kindness, without boundaries, is not virtue. It's a quiet surrender of self. Blind kindness comes with a heavy cost. It drains you, not just physically, but deeply, at the level of the soul. It delays your dreams, distorts your relationships, and slowly leads you to live a version of your life that belongs more to others than to yourself. This kind of life isn't sustainable because it violates the very nature of harmony the Stoics valued, living in alignment with your own nature, with truth, with clarity. When you constantly give while suppressing your needs, your voice, your rest, you're not embodying compassion, you're betraying yourself. The roots of this pattern often begin early. Many grow up learning that love must be earned through service, that conflict must be avoided no matter the cost, that their worth is measured by how much they give. But those early teachings, when left unexamined, become chains. The Stoics would call this enslavement, not to another person, but to a false belief, to a distortion of virtue. And nothing leads to more pain than being praised for a trait that's slowly undoing you. Over time, those who give endlessly become indispensable, but not in a way that honors them. They're needed, but not seen, valued, but not cared for. People begin to assume their presence, their help, their yes. And when that yes becomes automatic, their humanity begins to fade. They're no longer a person with boundaries and desires. They become a utility, a means to other people's ends. But the irony is this: blind kindness doesn't just hurt the giver, it also weakens the ones being helped. By always stepping in, always smoothing things over, always absorbing the consequences for others, you rob them of growth. You interrupt their natural path toward accountability and resilience. The Stoics believed that adversity sharpens the soul, but when you constantly shield others from discomfort, you deny them the very strength they need to develop. Eventually, what was once kindness turns into quiet resentment. You begin to feel the weight of imbalance. You wonder why no one asks how you're doing, why your needs are invisible, and even if you never say it out loud, it simmers inside. That hidden frustration doesn't vanish. It seeps into your tone, your relationships, your energy, and the more you bury it, the more it poisons the soil of your life. True kindness, the kind that aligns with Stoic virtue, is not endless giving. It's intentional giving. It's choosing to serve from a place of strength, not guilt. It's saying yes when it honors your values and no when it protects your peace. It's recognizing that your time, your energy, your presence, they are sacred. And treating them as such is not selfish. It's wise. It's just. It's necessary. At the end of the day, if your kindness costs you your wholeness, your clarity, your sense of self, it's not kindness. It's a form of self-abandonment. And no matter how noble it may look from the outside, it will never bring peace until you learn to serve others without disappearing yourself. Number 4, the discipline of becoming whole. Let's talk about what it really takes to become whole, not admired, not approved of, but whole. The Stoics understood that to live in harmony with nature means to embrace all parts of ourselves, even those we've tried to hide. The journey toward inner clarity isn't always graceful. It's more like turning on a light in a room that's been locked for years. The dust, the clutter, the forgotten pieces, they don't vanish. They reveal themselves. But only through honest observation can we begin to bring things into order. Many people wear kindness like armor. They serve, they smile, they say yes, often not because they want to, but because they fear what might happen if they don't. In truth, that's not virtue. That's avoidance. We avoid displeasing others. We avoid confrontation. We fear being seen as too much or not enough. So we offer a version of ourselves that's easier to digest. But as the Stoics remind us, anything done out of fear is not truly ours, and virtue cannot grow in the soil of fear. Real transformation begins when we stop hiding behind niceness and start living with integrity. That means rewriting the silent contract many of us have lived by. If I give you everything, you'll love me. But the Stoic contract is different. It says, I will live in accordance with truth, even if it means disappointing you. That shift is powerful, and it's also uncomfortable. Take someone like Layla, a woman who spent years being the reliable one, always the helper, always the peacekeeper, but deep down she felt hollow. Her time was consumed by others' needs, her voice drowned out by her own silence. One day she said no to something she would have automatically agreed to before, just once. And though she felt guilt at first, something else followed. Strength. It was the beginning of her integration, not a rejection of her kindness, but a redefinition of it. The Stoics would say, this is the path to euthymia, a deep inner steadiness. Integration doesn't make you cold or indifferent. It makes you deliberate, like a flame that doesn't flicker in the wind, but burns steadily with purpose. You begin to realize that your boundaries are just as sacred as your compassion. That saying no can sometimes be the most loving thing you do, not only for yourself, but for others who need to grow through their own effort, not your constant sacrifice. This kind of kindness isn't rooted in fear. It's born of clarity. It doesn't demand approval because it flows from wholeness. It's not the candle burning itself out to light others' paths. It's the lighthouse, standing strong, guiding from a distance, never dimming just to keep others comfortable. At the end of the day, the kindness that endures isn't the one that pleases everyone. It's the one that honors both your truth and your strength. That's the only kind worth offering. Number 5. Boundaries as a form of wisdom. Let's talk about the kind of strength that doesn't raise its voice. The quiet, disciplined strength of someone who knows how to say no with clarity and peace. In Stoic philosophy, boundaries are not acts of separation, but of alignment. They are how we define what is ours to manage, our thoughts, our time, our energy, and what belongs to others. Yet for those who've built their identity on being endlessly available, setting boundaries can feel like a betrayal of who they think they're supposed to be. But in truth, it's the beginning of who they're meant to become. Boundaries aren't walls that keep people out. They are lines that help us live with integrity. They show where we end and where others begin. And they begin with a radical act of self-respect, recognizing that our worth is not tied to how much we give, how much we do, or how often we say yes. Our worth, as the Stoics remind us, comes from living in accordance with our nature and reason, not from exhausting ourselves to prove it. Think of Marcus, a teacher who gave endlessly to his students and colleagues. He stayed late, covered extra duties, skipped lunch, answered emails at midnight. Everyone praised his generosity. But deep down, Marcus felt unseen. His work was appreciated, but he was not. Only when he started saying no to what drained him and yes to what aligned with his deeper purpose Did things shift? Some people faded, but those who stayed with greater respect. He wasn't less kind, he was just no longer self-erasing. The Stoics taught us that excess is the enemy of virtue. Even in giving, there must be temperance. Boundaries are how we keep our giving from becoming compulsion. They protect the wellspring of our kindness so that it doesn't run dry. They allow us to give not out of pressure or guilt, but from a place of calm abundance. And as we practice this, something beautiful happens. Our relationships may become fewer, but they grow deeper. We begin to notice the difference between true guilt and the kind manufactured by others' unmet expectations. We stop mistaking overextension for generosity. We recognize that our time and energy are not infinite, and that if we do not protect them, no one else will. At the end of the day, setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's stoic. It's a declaration that your peace matters, your purpose matters, and your kindness is worth guarding. Because when you know your limits, you can finally give from strength, not survival. Number 6. The balance between strength and compassion. Let's talk about the kind of transformation that doesn't shout, doesn't sparkle, but quietly remakes the core of who we are. In Stoic terms, it's the union of reason and nature, the merging of strength and compassion into something steady, deliberate, and whole. This is the alchemy of inner evolution. It begins not when we try to eliminate our flaws, but when we allow them to instruct us. Anger becomes the signal that our boundaries are being crossed. Resentment, a reminder that we've been giving beyond what's wise. Sadness, a quiet invitation to tend to what we've neglected within. This is not self-help fluff, it's self-mastery, the kind forged through honest reflection and hard choices. The Stoics never taught us to suppress. They taught us to observe, to integrate, and to act with clarity. Real strength isn't found in denying discomfort, but in transmuting it into something useful. Just like iron refined in fire, we become stronger not by avoiding the heat, but by enduring it with purpose. Take Sarah, for example, a leader who used to say yes to every demand. Outwardly, she seemed endlessly generous, but over time, her energy faded, her decisions grew erratic, and she resented what she once enjoyed. It wasn't until she embraced both her capacity to serve and her right to say no that she reclaimed balance. Her leadership became more impactful, not because she gave more, but because she gave wisely. The kind of kindness born from this transformation doesn't seek applause. It doesn't come from guilt or fear or the need to be seen as good. It comes from strength. It's a calm fire, measured, discerning, and deeply rooted in self-respect. And once you learn to let your shadow stand beside your light, you stop fearing the parts of you that once felt too messy to show. You stop needing to be perfect. You start becoming real. At the end of the day, true transformation isn't about choosing light over dark. It's about learning how both serve the same purpose, to help you walk through the world with wisdom, with power, and with peace. Number 7, living whole in a fragmented world. Let's talk about what it really means to live as a whole human being. The Stoics taught that to live well is to live in accordance with our full nature, not just the parts that others approve of, but the ones we ourselves often try to hide. Wholeness isn't about being perfect. It's about being complete. It's about allowing strength and softness, clarity and compassion, boundaries and generosity to coexist without shame or apology. Many people in the pursuit of being good end up fragmenting themselves. They give endlessly but feel hollow. They keep the peace but bury their truth. They love others yet forget themselves. But true goodness, as the Stoics would say, isn't rooted in self-erasure. It's rooted in reasoned balance. It's choosing to give when it's right, not because you're afraid to say no, but because you understand the value of your yes. Consider Thomas, a kind, dependable father who gave everything to his family, but quietly let his own dreams die on the vine. For years he thought sacrifice was love, but it wasn't until he started carving out space for his own growth, his own truth, that he became more present, more alive. His kindness didn't shrink, it deepened, because it was no longer driven by guilt. It was rooted in intention. This is your invitation to stop confusing silence with humility, burnout with virtue, and people-pleasing with love. Look within and ask, what part of me have I buried because I feared it would make me less likable? What boundary have I avoided setting because I didn't want to lose connection? Stoic strength begins when we choose truth over comfort. At the end of the day, the world doesn't need more obedient masks. It needs real people. People who are whole. People who can hold both courage and care. Who can say yes with their heart and no with their spine. That's not weakness. That's wisdom in motion. At the end of the day, you're not here to prove your goodness by shrinking yourself. You're here to live fully, rooted, whole, and unshaken. True strength isn't about being endlessly agreeable or flawlessly kind. It's about having the courage to embrace every part of who you are. Your fire, your calm, your depth. And when those parts stand together, not in conflict, but in harmony, something powerful happens. You stop seeking permission to exist, and you start living with intention. This kind of power doesn't dominate, it restores. It doesn't shout, it moves with quiet certainty. So the real question isn't, am I kind enough? It's, am I ready to step into a life where my kindness is no longer self-betrayal, but self-command? If something in this message spoke to you, take a moment to reflect. And if you're walking this path too, subscribe to stay connected. There's more waiting, more truth, more clarity, more strength. I'd love to know you're here. Drop a simple "still here" in the comments. Let it be a quiet nod between us. And when you're ready, the next chapter is just one step away. Keep showing up for yourself. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to be real. And that, more than anything, is enough.